try different people.
Welcome back. I am thrilled to be joined by Kenneth Hierman. We're at the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin, and Kenneth is actually the manager of finance for Walt Disney World Parks and Resorts. And Kenneth's going to talk to us a little bit about Walt Disney World's data warehousing strategy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So could you just start out by giving us an overview of what you have in place at Disney?
Sure. On the finance side, which is where I represent, and I actually am on the functional side, so I'm in finance, not necessarily IT, important thing to understand. We actually have a couple of different things that we're using. Really, primarily, our focus over the last year and a half has been implementing of Rapid Marts. We have done a variety of them. So we do use Business Warehouse also as part of our infrastructure. So that is where the majority of our information comes. In the past, it was R3, our transactional data, BW for our summarized data. And now that we have the Rapid Marts, we're using that more as the replacement for our transactional data and actually able to do reporting off of that.
So talk to me a little bit about the Rapid Mart strategy, especially considering you have BW in place, but you've decided to put business objects on top of the Rapid Marts instead. Talk to me about that and the pluses and minuses of that strategy.
Right. So for the Rapid Marts, the reason we decided to go down this route was we had actually thought about taking the information we had in a particular area, which is P2P, procure to pay, and bringing it into BW. When we had actually done that analysis at the time and trying to move that transactional data out of our R3 system into BW, it was really cost prohibitive for us to do. And as not only that, but it was also there were time constraints there too. So we decided to look at other options. What it came up to and really came down to is looking at the SAP version and what we could do there as far as instead of taking things out and just shoving them into an Oracle database or something without anything on top of it, what did SAP have to offer? That's where we found out and we started talking about what the Rapid Marts could do for us. We looked at a few of the Rapid Marts. We looked at our purchasing Rapid Mart, warehousing, and accounts payable, which are the three parts that make up procure to pay. We implemented all three of those. It did take us a little bit longer to implement them, but we learned a lot along the way. They are really nice in the way that they are designed. They give you, as they say, about 80% of what you need based upon industry standards, which does make sense. Then you go in, and what we had to do is then augment that with the other additional things we thought as far as our user base, how they use the system, what additional items did they need to do, and we had to bring those in on top of that.
So how much would you say was out of the box versus the time you spent to customize it?
As a percentage, it really was about 80-20. Time-wise, it took us a little bit longer for this particular one because we had to figure out the infrastructure, which had absolutely nothing to do with the product itself, but how are we going to do servers and those types of things. That took us a little bit longer than anticipated, but the overall, from start to finish, if you took that out of it, probably took us about 4 months or so, 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there for that first round.
Which is a lot quicker than it would have taken you with BW.
Yeah. And in the past, it would have taken us probably about 9 months in order to do something like that within BW, and the cost was significantly less. We used a lot fewer IT resources in order to do this because we ended up using my team on the functional side in order to do a lot of things that normally our IT partners would have done.
That's really interesting. So can you talk, too, about some of the advice you'd pass on to other customers who are thinking about taking this path?
If you're going to take this path, one thing that you're going to have to do, no matter what, is that you're really going to have to understand what is it that your users need. What is it that they want? You're going to need people who are really the subject matter experts in that area. They're not always the IT side. In our case, it is our functional teams. We have teams that specialize in procure to pay. They know exactly what the transactions are in SAP, what areas it comes from, what are the tables, all that information you have to glean out of people. Your end users aren't necessarily going to know all of that, so you have to find some expertise somewhere, which isn't in a lot of cases necessarily your IT organization. That's where we did a lot of our learnings and really understanding how do we need to interact with this system, not necessarily how the system needs to be put together, just put in, but how are we then going to interact with it and then put business objects on top of it.
What business objects tools are on top?
Currently today, there's a couple of them. So we do have Webby as our primary tool that we're using. We do have Query as a Web Service that's also querying things, and Excelsius. So we are using this for a dashboard in Excelsius that is primarily used by our fireworks areas here in Walt Disney World, and will eventually go to Disneyland also. They're using it for ATF reporting that they are required to do on an annual basis, so they're able to see quickly on a daily, weekly basis exactly what their inventories are and how what they need to do as far as moving things around from their different storage locations.
And you're a functional person, so this is an interesting question to pose. It sounds like Disney and your team has done a great job of just being able to get the interest of the business and not have all of this lie with IT. Could you give us some specific examples of how you bridge that gap?
So our department actually is called Financial Systems. We actually sit in between the two groups. We report up through finance, but we know enough in finance and on the IT side in order to help translate back and forth. So our main purpose is literally to do that, to talk to the business, understand what their needs are, and then go to our IT partners and say, okay, here's what they need, and then translate back and forth, going back and forth. So in doing that, as we have kind of matured our connections between SAP and BusinessObjects, because in the past they were two separate organizations until they were now brought together, and brought together because of the merger, not necessarily because of the company. We've really formed those bonds, that way. So our IT folks on the BusinessObjects side know that we understand SAP, and SAP knows that we understand BusinessObjects. So we're able to really partner with them to understand what our needs are, as well as honoring and respecting what they need to have done in their business also.
It's a great position to be in, to have the SAP expertise and the legacy BusinessObjects expertise to bring those two together. Well, thank you so much. That was a great, interesting conversation. And next up we have our sponsor, Elliot Garofalo from Optimal Solutions Integrated, Inc. And please tune in for that one. You won't want to miss it. Thank you so much. That's really great.
Thank you.
You're really good at thinking on your feet.